Hello and welcome back to the Simplifiers podcast, where we take topics either in business or in life and simplify them. Now, friends, I have a very special guest for you today because, it's not very often you get to interview your own undercover superheroes in your life, and Carrie is certainly one of them for me. I'd like to introduce to you Carrie Contey. She has a PhD and an internationally recognized coach, author, speaker, and educator. Her work offers a new perspective on human development, parenting, and family life. She guides, supports, and inspires her clients to live with wide open and courageous hearts so that they can approach family life with skill and spaciousness. Now, Carrie, she's got a doctorate in clinical psychology with an emphasis on prenatal and perinatal psychology, and is a masterful genius at synthesizing and articulating the science, psychology, and spirituality of humanhood. Now, she has been seen all over, like literally all over, the Today Show, NPR, CBS Radio, Time Magazine, Parenting. I'm just so delighted to introduce her now to the Simplifiers family of audience. I'd like to welcome to the Simplifiers podcast, Carrie Contey. Hi, Carrie.
Yay. Hello. It's so good to be here. What an introduction. I love it.
Oh, Carrie, I do adore you. And the reason I adore you is because you have made a fundamental good, positive change on the way I parent and the way our family structure rolls. So I should back up and say, Carrie and I met a bazillion years ago. Okay, maybe not a bazillion, but it was 2010, if I dare think it's correct, because I was pregnant at that time. And because she was a speaker on the TEDx Austin stage, which I helped co-produce. Now, do you remember way back when that TEDx talk that you did, what was the topic?
It was called The Power of the Pause.
Yes. And I remember significantly right way back when that you told us and talked to us about being versus doing in life. And, what I really wanted to bring you on to the podcast to talk about today is this concept we hear called conscious parenting. Now, how do we, first off, let's define, what does conscious parenting mean to you?
Well, specifically, just what you said, it's more a way of being with your growing people than any doing. It's not a formula. It's not a dogma. It's a philosophy around deciding that you are going to choose to be present with yourself first and interact with your people as humans who you're building relationships with, and that you're going to do whatever it takes. You're going to do the inner work to really recognize when you get triggered and when things are flowing and when things are challenging. And you're going to really be awake to the experiences of family life, which can be wild and turbulent. It's almost like being on a ship. You don't know what the weather's going to be like. And if you're not choosing a conscious path, you could get really upset when the weather's bad or when the crewmates aren't doing what they're supposed to be doing. But when you choose a more conscious path and you say, all right, this is my experience. This is me. I'm the regulator. I'm the one who's having to steady us because they're the smaller people and they're just figuring stuff out and learning. I have to guide us and I have to guide them, but I have to really show up for myself first.
Yeah. And before we dive into really practical and simple tips about all of this stuff, I think maybe we should back up a little bit and talk about you and how this became such a passion for you. I loved reading in your bio on your website that the very first time you held a baby at the age of 7 is when everything sparked for you. Can you talk to us, why is parenting and kids so like your thing, your life?
Yeah, that's a great question, because it wasn't something that I just stumbled into because I became a parent. I just had this inner knowing, this spark of excitement when I thought about and spent time with babies and children and their parents from the time I was a little kid. And what that led me to was wanting to really study this whole idea of what do humans need from, what are humans all about, first of all, like what are we really all about? And then what do humans need from the beginning of life to really stay who they are, to stay connected to that bigger, I call it the big being in the little body, that you don't get a baby or you don't have a child, you have a person and you're helping them through different phases of development: babyhood, toddlerhood, preschoolhood, childhood, preteenhood, teenhood, young adulthood. And so how do you put that lens on yourself? And then I have to turn it inward and recognize, oh, I was a person in that little body and what was going on for me in my life. And I mean, it's just endless. I'm never bored. I'm constantly excited to learn and share and, you know, really dive deeper and deeper into this way of thinking.
Yeah.
Of, you know, humans as people.
And well, no, but I think that there is so much to that. And if we could put a pin in the map and kind of what you just said there, I think what's interesting as a parent myself, my kids are 8 and 9 now, which blows my mind. It goes so fast, is when I was pregnant with my firstborn, you know, just that feeling before the baby came of like, they have no idea. They're going to give me a child and I have no clue what I'm doing. You know, like you're in that phase of your life. You know, people get pregnant and have babies, let's say stereotyping from, you know, their early 20s to their late 30s. You're definitely not full formed as a human yourself. And then they're like, right, here's a baby. Good luck. Hope it goes well.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. No training.
Right.
Nobody's saying like, here's the manual. Here's what you do.
Yeah.
You're just like, good luck.
Good luck. Hope it
Don't
goes
mess
well.
It up.
Yeah. I'm finding it's actually harder to get a driver's license in the UK than it was to have a baby be given to me.
Amazing.
You know,
seriously.
Yes. So, like, how do all those people that are listening right now going, yeah, there's a baby on the way, and I have no clue. Like, what do you say to them? Where do we begin?
I think you begin with the idea that just like any other relationship, sure, these people come in this tiny little body and they can't communicate the way that we communicate. However, 2 points. One, when they're in the womb, you don't have to do anything to make them who they are. You're not growing them. I mean, your body is helping that process.
Yeah.
But you don't have to stop and think like, oh, I better look at my calendar and see if today is the day I have to make the eyes work a certain way, or that enzyme that kicks on to make sure they can, process proteins. Like no thought of I need to make a person is in there. So when they come out, when you have the mindset of, okay, well, I'm still just along for the ride and I have to keep them fed and I have to guide them with how we operate in our culture, but I don't have to make them who they are.
Yeah.
And I don't have to even make them good. I have to help regulate their system for a while because they don't come in pre-wired to be able to do that. But I'm not making this person a person. They are a person.
Yeah.
So when you flip it and make the bigger bulk of your intention, how do I help this person through these phases of development? What do I need to do for me? What do I need to do for them? Versus how do I raise a child? It's just it's a little bit of a switch.
Well, and it's so daunting to think like the pressure of, oh my gosh, I'm going to flub this up, you know, like that we put on ourselves. And, you know, I dare say that we also have a lot of influences from society. You see, you know, pretty pictures on Instagram of people who just seem to magically figure this whole parenting thing out. And, you know, they just like they're a size 2 weeks after the child is born. You know, I mean, it's hard. It is hard because you're put up against this ideology of what it's supposed to be, but it never ends up being that. It's a hot mess sometimes.
A lot of the time. Yeah. And that's what's real. I mean, I work with thousands of parents all over the world. Yeah. And everybody is saying the same things. And these are conscious parents. Like, it's not that knowing this stuff necessarily makes everything smooth and pretty all the time. It's just the tools for navigating what it is.
Yeah. So talk to us about tools where new baby, brand new baby, right? Coming home. What would you say to that parent sort of in the, 0 to 6 months phase, really, as practical tools?
So there's something that I know we're going to hit on, but I'll just lay it out right now because I think it could be as simple as this.
Mm-hmm.
So the three things, whether your young person is 6 months or 6 years or 16 or 26 or 66,
Mm-hmm.
they're just life lessons for humans. Three things: slow down,
Yeah.
connect, enjoy. So you arrive home with this brand new person and your energy is kind of anxious or very anxious because you don't know what you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
And the little person starts to get upset because who knows why. They might have an itch. We don't know why a little baby is upset when they are. But what they need and what you need in those moments is to catch yourself and slow it down.
Mm-hmm.
Like really recognize like, oh, you're speeding up because who knows why.
Mm-hmm.
I'm speeding up because I don't know what I'm doing. Okay, I can't expect you to feel better so I can feel better. I have to get present with myself.
Yeah.
I've got to slow down and really just name like, whoa, haven't been here before.
Mm-hmm.
Don't know what I'm doing, but we're going to figure it out together. So the slow down is first in you, which will communicate to the little person like, yeah, things are off, but we're safe.
Mm-hmm.
Because when we get anxious and we start revving, then they're like, well, I just had an itch or I just had poop in my diaper. I don't know what's going on now because you're really anxious and I'm depending on you to communicate whether we're okay or not.
It's so true. So
I know.
True. Yeah. And they pick up on your vibes. And so then they go, oh, this is not safe,
Right. That's it.
The vibe is not safe. Should I be nervous? And I think that they do pick that up even at like new fresh baby scent, style.
Absolutely. Like extra, because that's all they've got. They can't communicate with you. All they can do is read, they're pre-wired in their brain to connect with their caregivers and feel from their sensory information whether things are calm and safe or freaking out.
Right.
And when they're freaking out, fight or flight kicks in and they are off and running, and it's really hard to get them to settle. It's extra hard when you aren't doing that in yourself.
Right.
So learning, wouldn't you say one of the biggest things you've either learned from me and or through parenting, you've had to learn how to like manage yourself, how to collect yourself when you're out of sorts, because it affects them at all the ages they've been.
100%. Like a mantra of mine is, when the mothership goes down, we all go down. And so,
literally the mother.
Literally. So, and it took a long while to sink that in. And that self-care is not being selfish. Self-care is pivotal and integral to, creating that environment and that vibe, that energy level in the family. So when my husband and I know that we truly have to nourish ourselves and each other, that helps to ripple out to our kids as well.
Yeah. And that takes us to point number 2, which is connect. And I think what most parents hear when I say that initially is, connect with the child. Mm-hmm. But that's not what I mean. It's first connect with yourself. Mm-hmm. And so when I talk about self-care, I'm talking from micro moments of just like noticing what's going on in your heart, or noticing if your shoulders are up and letting them down, or taking a deeper breath, to, doing a retreat with me somewhere fabulous so that you can get that moment of, that little bit of solitude to get realigned with you. Mm-hmm. Because your kids don't want, if you're out of alignment and your wires are crossed, they're going to feel that. Mm-hmm. And then anything you say or do isn't going to actually get, because they're feeling you more than they're hearing you. Mm. So this idea of learning, and again, most of us grew up in a time where there was a lot of like, you pay attention to who's out there and what they need from you. We didn't really get guided on knowing how to really tune into ourselves. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I feel like that's the bulk of my work, is like, how do I help parents so that not only are they doing it, but they're modeling it for their kids? Because imagine a world where we didn't have to relearn this. We just knew it from the beginning. And that's what I'm seeing with my work of parents going taking a conscious path, is their young people know themselves and they know what feels right for them and what doesn't.
Yeah.
And that's as good as it gets. I mean, they're going to make mistakes and they're going to experiment with things, but on the whole, they're going to have a deeper sense of like me first, and and that makes me a better connector and society member. It's not an either or. This isn't about creating people who are selfish, but we all are starting to recognize when we're self-full, we've got infinitely more to give, and we're communicating in a much clearer and more effective way with the people that are in our lives.
It's true. I can tell you from firsthand account, it's true. When my firstborn was born, I could easily say from the first 3 months easily of just sleep deprivation, your brain goes into survival mode. It shuts down into a different part of the brain, and I joke that if Gareth and I hadn't taken photos and videos, like I just wouldn't remember any of it. Because when you're used to getting 7 hours of sleep or 8 hours and you're down to like 2 hours or half an hour here and there for months at a time, it's hard. And I think that what I learned from that phase of parenting, and I'm still learning every single day because it's a daily choice, is that just slowing down, stopping, having a glass of water, doing a 2-minute meditation. I mean, this really points to what you were talking about a little bit earlier. Tell us more about what you mean by micro, medium, and large.
Okay. Yeah. So, I know I've been at this long enough. I've watched so many people do this parenting thing, especially in the early years, that I'm not naive. You don't have time. When the mom says, I haven't showered in days, and the single friends are rolling their eyes and, people are going, well, that'll never be me. And then you get in it and you're like, I haven't showered in days.
Yeah.
That is real.
It is real.
That is real. And it is because you've got this human that you're tending, and their survival depends on it in the beginning.
And it's intense at times. Yeah.
It's really intense. And then because it's so intense and because you go through this portal of sleep deprivation and of caring for this person, you could in your brain start to only focus on them and not really turn the view back to yourself.
Yeah.
Because there's high stakes. So what I mean by that is, because if I were to say to somebody, well, you haven't showered, but you really need an hour-long yoga class, you're like, that's not helpful.
Yeah, it's not helpful.
No, and it's not even needed at that point, but what is needed are these little sips, these little, I use the analogy of your cell phone, that in order for it to work, you have to plug it in. And ideally, you get a nice full charge. But sometimes you're running outdoor and you just need a little bump so that you don't drain. And it's the same thing with our nervous systems. We need to refuel. Like the little people are plugged in. They don't have their own wall charger. They're not going for a run or going to their therapist.
Yeah.
They've got parent. So not only are you trying to manage your own nervous system, but you've got these other people who are drawing energy out of you so that they can do all this phenomenal growing that requires a lot of energy on their part. So if you can remember, okay, I'm tending you, all right, now me. So, the little one goes down for a nap. What often happens is like, let me check my email. Let me go do the dishes. And it's like, wait, stop, slow down. Fill yourself up, even if it's just walking outside and taking a big breath.
Yes.
Or, these are the micros, jumping up and down 3 times, waving your hands in the air, stretching, closing your eyes, laying on the couch and closing your eyes for 2 minutes can make a giant difference.
Yeah, because you're slowing your heart rate down as well, right? You're reducing the cortisol and the adrenaline that might be coursing through you. Yeah.
Yeah, and that will only set a calmer tone for everybody. Because we're revving and the thought, you don't even have thought in those. As soon as you start to rev and your brain starts to go to a less human place because you're overdone, you're going to sense there's more danger than there actually is.
Yeah.
And so that often keeps us in that fight or flight, that like, I just got to be on hyper alert. But the thing that is going to slow that down and get you back to you, which is where all the good decisions can be made. And actually, you will know what to do next.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
You will know.
it sounds like to me, I mean, it's interesting because there's a lot of parallels to other people that I talk to on the podcast, but I think it's really interesting when you do slow down, when you take time to nourish, you slow your breathing down, all of that, you are tapping back into your intuition. You're tapping back into that inner voice in there that, when you are in survival mode, it just becomes muffled. You can't hear it, right?
Totally. Yeah, you don't trust it. You can't access it. I say to people that intuition or that higher knowing or whatever you choose to call it, it isn't aggressive. It waits. It would wait for lifetimes for us to be calm enough. But the minute there's some space, it's like on the water. I'm at the ocean, and every day is a little different. But when it's calm, you look down and you can see the fish, and you can see where you're going, and you can make different choices. The same thing with our mental state. It's like when we're just revving and we've got the thoughts going, and we're not doing the deeper work to get ourselves to slow down, it's really almost impossible to hear what's true.
Yeah.
But the moment that you can start to practice that and really just, even if it's 1 second and then 10 seconds and then 1 minute and then 2 minutes and then 5 minutes, even if that's all you ever get to, you're going to have a different sense of how to proceed with yourself and your people. And the deal is, there's no right way. I speak a lot about this concept of many of us were parented during a time when it was very top down. It was like, well, I'm the parent. I'm the one, I'm telling you what to do.
I'm in
going to make
charge.
sure I'm in charge. Yeah. We're doing it my way. You're going to believe what I believe. You're not really a person. I make you who you are.
And if you don't listen, you'll get spanked. Yeah.
Correct. Or, struck down. Like it was very dogmatic. It was like, this is what it is to be healthy, and this is it. And you better fit in our box.
Right.
Now we're in a moment, I call it past, present, future. Present moment is more like, well, I know that this is a person, and I know that there's ways of doing it that are probably better. So I need to find those, and I need to find the experts, and I need to be listening to everybody else so that I can do it right. What I'm saying I want in the world is where we're heading, which is there is no right way. You have to find that from within, and you're just going to be experimenting. But you've got this inner knowing, and you can live from that and be clear and have a value-based life and impart that to your kids, but also full well know that they may be here for a totally different experience. So you give them the structure of living a principled, value-based, conscious life. And then you have to have a lot of faith that their path will unfold just as it needs to for them. But that can only really happen if they've been guided to listen to that inner guidance system.
Yeah. And again, you as the parent, you set the tone, and it's okay if you flub it up as well as you go, because that's what we all are doing. And one thing that I remember that was kind of one of those eureka aha moments when the kids were very little. This is when Zoe was teeny tiny, because I was all about skin to skin contact. Having the baby close to me, that was part of what really helped us connect, both her and I, then me as well as a mother. But in that, I sort of felt like, oh, I can't put the baby down. The baby has to always be on me, worn, everywhere, da-da-da-da-da, bounce, da-da-da, all of that. And I had this funny aha moment of like, well, how can I possibly shower? I have to hold the baby. Like, these are the things that you think of in when you're a new young parent. And I was like, wait a second, pause. I can get one of those little bouncer chairs, and she could just sit and watch me shower and bounce, and it would be fine. Like, it's funny when you're a parent because you get so wrapped up in your head. You get so wrapped up in like, I have to do it this exact way, or if it don't go this exact way, everything goes and crumbles. Right. But it is really sometimes simplicity. It is sometimes coming back to the basics.
Correct.
And trying things.
That's it.
Yeah.
And experimenting, but doing it from a place of like, what feels true for you? Like if feeling like you have a home where people are really expressing who they are.
Yeah.
That requires the parent to be modeling that and really listening to themselves. That, I think modern parenting, especially because we have the Pinterest and we have the Facebook and we have all this stuff saying like, this is my opinion. This is my opinion. This is the way, this is it. And then you realize like that's just some people's opinions.
Yeah.
And that's maybe what worked for them. But the bigger message is, I got to find what works for us.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things that, we were going to talk about. It's like when you put the label, I'm their parent on this project, this relationship, then it becomes a job or a project. And you think, well, I have to do this. And the truth is, even if you thought of it that way, you can't judge how you're doing the job in the day-to-day because human development is messy. So if you're thinking, well, I'll be the best parent and you'll be a kid who never has meltdowns or you never have a problem or you never feel frustrated, that's not what you're going for. That's like saying, well, I want my caterpillar to turn into a butterfly, but I don't actually want them to have to struggle in the cocoon to get out. It's like, that's not healthy. So what I love is getting parents to just give it one little tweak and be thinking of this less as I'm the parent and I need to make you okay to I'm in a relationship, a very intimate relationship with a person who's going to go through a long process of development. And P.S., guess what? I have to go through a long process of development with them because I've never been a parent or I've never been a parent to a 9-year-old or I've never, had this situation come up. So imagine a world where people are in the family relationship, but they're really operating from this perspective of you're growing, I have to grow in order to help you grow. You're helping me grow. Isn't this amazing?
Yeah. And I think it is an absolute paradigm shift when I started to realize that's at the core of everything that you do. And, as you have been a parenting coach for us for years, I mean, your whispers, your everyday emails are just like literally solid gold. And I, just a side note to everybody, I'll put the link down in the show notes so you can check those out yourself. They're absolutely free. I highly encourage you signing on to her daily emails because sometimes you just need a little drop in your day to just like spark a new thought. And that's what I really appreciate about your daily emails is that it literally drops a new thought, a new little seed into my head every morning and go, okay, well, actually, how do I do this bit? What have I thought about this bit? But yeah, I mean, getting back to what you were saying earlier, like your people are just little amazing people in little bodies, but they are amazing brains, So when you stop thinking of them as they are, lesser than me, because I'm the adult, I'm the one in charge, but actually like we are all these really interesting people who are kind of broken, but also kind of forming and that was a game changer for me. Absolutely.
I mean, it almost makes you feel like you could be like a little super team. Like we're all here, there's the 4 of you and you're all totally different.
Totally.
Like that's a guarantee. And I mean, that's the other piece is you don't get a little you. You're not making a little you. They're as different as somebody you meet on the street. And so learning how to interact, I use the metaphor a lot of, like waves and rhythms and pulses. And it's like you're living in a family with 4 people who all operate so differently. So acknowledge that. And then when it's grooving, celebrate and appreciate and put a nice spot, a nice star next to that moment. That was fun.
Yeah.
I wonder when that'll happen again. And then when it's a big giant mess, just go, oh, we're out of phase. Everybody's rhythms are off. Okay, we'll get back there.
Yeah.
It's like it could be that simple versus like, well, you're misbehaving and I'm being a bad parent and blah, blah, blah. We do all these crazy things when really, when you simplify it and you get down to the bottom of it, you're just a bunch of humans trying to grow together.
Yeah.
And trying to evolve and become.
Yeah.
And And that requires a lot of space and time and love and compassion.
Gentleness, I think, is really the word that comes back for not
Yeah.
only for yourself, but for your children and for your spouse as well.
Yes, totally.
Not to mention the single parents out there. I mean, a big fist bump to the sky for you because it is a lot. So here's a couple of simple practical tips that we've been putting in place with our family. And I'm kind of curious, Carrie, if you can add us a few more. So this is what's working for us. Again, my kids are 8 and 9 right now. This is certainly not what we were doing at 2 and 3, or even 6 months and, a year and a half old. But here's what's working for us at this stage. One, we have a whiteboard in the living room where we jot down ideas like, hey, where do we want to go on a summer vacation this year? And everybody gets a chance. There's a marker and everybody gets to put their ideas down. Another thing that we've been doing with the whiteboard is, and this is just fun, Gareth has been starting to write math problems on the whiteboard and just letting people figure them out. And they're like puzzles and things like that. And it's playful,
Totally.
to a playful approach to sometimes what people would go, oh, no, I don't want to do that. We're having fun with it, with that.
Yeah.
Another thing that we've been incorporating into our lifestyle is every now and again family meetings, and not family meetings isn't family meeting. Let's come together and let's talk about what's working, what's not working, what have we learned, all of that.
Yes.
And what I love about that is, at first it was my husband and I sparking these meetings, but now the kids are like, Mom, we need a family meeting soon because I want to talk about blah, blah, blah. And I'm just like, it just delights me because I'm like,
That's amazing.
You know? So
it not only is in the moment is it helpful, but it's laying a foundation of family communication that will serve you lifelong.
Yes.
It's an honoring of all the members.
Yeah. And everybody gets a voice at the
honoring
table.
Yes, exactly. And it's an honoring that this is important. We're a family and we're going to communicate about things. And, they're not even going to know any different. They're going to think everybody does that. And when they get out in the world and realize, well, nobody does that. Or they'll connect with the kids who were like, did your family have a family meeting? Oh, yeah. They're going to be drawn to people that have had experiences similar to them. And the richer those experiences are with exactly what you said, a playful feeling. It's just a different it's just a different experience. And it's so rich. It's so valuable in the sense of, wow, I get to be heard and I get to be seen and I get to, we value these things. Our family values connection and having fun and learning. And, and that is it. It's slow down, connect, enjoy. It's like, how do you help these humans understand the world, understand themselves? But how do you do that in a way that speaks everybody's language, which actually is play and joy and love? And so even if it's these little things, like having a quote on the whiteboard every day and just seeing who catches it and what, you could go endlessly in a beautiful direction of all right, how do we make this fun? How do we bring a little more light to it all?
Yeah. What you just said there also sparked another thing that we've been trying lately is, the kids have weekly spelling tests at school, and we'll put a couple of their spelling words on the board. Just put it there, because everything's funny spelled in England. There's a lot more U's and Z's than there are in America. But again, I think that's the key is putting the play into it, put the fun back into
just
this
trying stuff. Yeah. And I mean, that's the thing. That's why slow down, connect, enjoy is my mantra, personally, professionally, everywhere, because you can't access that creative stuff unless you've slowed down and really gotten clear with, all right, well, I don't do it just because Carrie Contey says to do it. I do it because it's what I want to try.
Yeah.
And that's all we're doing is experimenting and trying stuff on and using it to go, not does this make me a better parent, but does this bring more connection, less connection, more joy, less joy, more love, less love, more fun, less fun. That's all we're doing here.
Yeah. And, okay, so all that's well and good. And I can imagine somebody listening to this going, yeah, that sounds great, Carrie. But what happens when I have a meltdown? I, the parent, or when I get super triggered by something that they say or do, what do I do then?
Yeah. So what I tell people is go for, okay, a lot of this is new. A lot of us didn't get wired with this stuff. We got wired in the old way of thinking where, you have to discipline those children and make sure that they act right. And it's your job to be a good parent. And so when you can recognize that you're going to try these new things, but just like if you were learning anything new, it's not always going to come out smoothly. And there are going to be, and I'm going to go back to what I said earlier, just because you know this stuff, just because you choose to be a conscious parent, it doesn't mean your 3-year-old doesn't melt down in the grocery store or your 9-year-old doesn't sass back at you when they're getting their homework done and you need them doing something else or whatever.
Yep.
You have to recognize that this isn't a prescription for everything going smoothly, specifically your own state of being, that you're tired and you're doing lots of things and you are also growing and changing just like they are. So there's going to be times that you rock it and you want to, again, celebrate those and appreciate and say that really felt great. Here's why. But then there's going to be way more times when you're just going along and all of a sudden your little person or your big partner person does something that triggers you and boom, you're gone. And you're acting in ways you would never want to be acting for your people, or with them.
Yeah.
So what you do is you slow it down and you catch it. I mean, you may not catch the reaction, but after it happens, if you can stop and go, whoa, I am triggered. Like it could be that simple. Like, whoa, I got tripped. That's kind of what being triggered is. It's like being emotionally tripped.
Yeah.
And when you're tripped, you're not like, oh, I just got tripped. You're stumbling. And the same thing when you're triggered, you're going to do things that are very reactionary. And so a lot of us were raised with a parent getting triggered and then the parent reacting and, shaming or getting mad at the kid. And all I'm asking is don't try to never be tripped. That's impossible.
Yeah.
However, if you can just catch it, even as you're like, I'm going to freak out and then I'm going to look up here. Oh, that was really hard. I feel really yucky. Like just catching it and moving it slightly is an amazingly powerful thing. Then if after it happens, you can ask yourself like, wow, that really got me. Okay, what's going on? Oh, I'm tired. Oh, I don't like to not be listened to. Oh, I've got to slow down so that they hear me differently because I keep reacting to that particular sound or behavior. And it's like the trigger is what we're doing is we're shifting the trigger from being the cue to freak out, which it is, to being a cue to you might freak out, try to do it a little less abrasively on the person. You can, I'm so angry, I'm frustrated. You can do that. That's healthy because it's getting it out of you. But it's going to take a little practice and it's recognizing like, wow, that got me. That this kid isn't making me feel crazy. They're doing something that they're probably not even aware they're doing that is sending off my brain alarms that are going, stop that thing.
So
go ahead.
In that moment, though, is it best to just say pause? I'm going to walk away from this situation, even if it's like for 5 seconds, just to catch your breath.
100%.
Yeah, I mean, if the kid's melting down and you're melting down and you're in the supermarket, there's no escaping that situation. Right. But it sounds like to me what I hear you say is the trigger's inevitable. Your response is optional. It's a choice, right?
Yes.
So channeling that energy because it bubbles up, right? That channeling that in a different way, whether that is shouting to the sky, but not shouting at the kid. You're not directing that energy to the kid.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. We don't get sad at somebody. Why do we think it's okay to get mad at them? Yeah. We have to take responsibility, and that's a new paradigm. That's a new way of thinking. Because a lot of us were, I'm the disciplinarian. We were raised with that mindset of like, you did something. Now I need to make sure you hear that it was wrong. but that doesn't actually communicate anything to that other person other than a little bit of shame, like you did something to make me upset. But imagine a world where parents are going, I'm freaking out, you're freaking out, this is really tricky. I need to take a pause, or I need to take a breath.
Mm-hmm.
Because here's the deal. You don't get to speak a different language than you're teaching these people how to deal with not just the smooth parts of life, but the challenging parts, specifically the big emotions like anger and sadness and fear.
Yeah.
And so not only in the moment when you don't yell at them and you look away and you catch, I'm freaking out on you. Oh, no, right. I'm going to look up. Not only is that just better for the relationship in the moment,
right,
but it's actually modeling to them the way you would hope they would do it later.
Right.
It's imagine your kids get into a scuffle and one's getting triggered. And instead of looking at brother and going, I hate you, they were able to go, I'm triggered, Mom, I need help. I'm triggered. And then you can help them, or they just understand, like, that's not fair to yell at people.
Yeah.
I need to do it differently. But you can only learn that by having the people around you practicing it, just like a language. You can't look at them and be like, well, we know French is a better language to be speaking, but we don't speak it, but you need to learn it.
Right. And again, it comes back to being a conscious parent. Like, you're setting the tone, you're facilitating that core value in the family that we all share as a collective together, right? We're all coming to it together.
Right.
Yeah. So tell us, how do we be a conscious parent and also deal with a child that wants to be on a screen or a device constantly? Can you tell us?
Yeah, it's a big one.
I'm asking for a friend.
It might be the biggest question I get these days.
Yeah.
So the bottom line is, it's not going anywhere. It's only going to get more. It's such an implicit part of their life.
Yeah.
They don't know. They've never seen our hand without a phone in it. Probably your kids. I had a phone in 2010 that I looked at.
Yep.
So they are, this is a new opportunity, in my opinion. This isn't a bad thing. There's always been something that has made parents freak out and kids thrilled beyond belief.
Like the television, like the radio, like the,
music, the wheel probably at some point.
Right.
Like anything that pushes where we've been, there's a very inherent reaction of like, yikes. Even though we would look at our parents and be like, well, of course MTV was awesome. Why would you be afraid of that? So what I say to people is, this is a golden opportunity to create really clear values and guidelines and be experimenting with them and to listen to them and really, so you are the parent. So if the screens are making your head explode, then you do have to create guidelines that are going to help them, because it's horrible for a young person to get the thing they want and have their parent freaking out and being resentful about it.
Right.
So you have a family meeting, you slow it all down, but first you really get a little clarity of like, what do we want to experiment with? I love the idea of like, in the summer, you can be on the computer half as many hours as you're outside. So if you want 2 hours on the screen, you can go out for 4 hours, and I could feel uncomfortable with that.
Love that.
Or, there's people that are like, we don't do screens until these 5 things are done in the morning. Or we just, on Sundays, we take a sabbatical, a Sabbath from technology. Like, there's no right way. There's just experimenting, but doing it from a place of, okay, we value health. So we don't want you staring at a screen for endless hours. We are a family that goes outside. And what I've seen and heard from young people is, A, as much as they might push back, they do want the structure. They do want the boundaries imposed. And B, they want their parents modeling something that's congruent with what they're asking of them.
Right. So you can't say,
be double standard.
Right. Get off the video games, but you're scrolling on your iPhone, right?
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, even if you're like, but I'm working, and it's like, it doesn't matter.
You're
being a hypocrite.
I'm so guilty of that.
Everybody is. Everybody is. But if you become conscious and you go, well, wait, I have to model this.
Yeah, it's true.
Like, you can't be showing them how to use a tool that and expect them to use it appropriately if you're using it really haphazardly.
Right.
And then the other piece is communicating your values when you set the guideline. So, instead of just saying, the screens are making me crazy, I need you to get off. And then they're like, that doesn't really give me enough information. If you said, I'm getting anxious because part of something I value more than anything is that we're a family that is multifaceted. Mm-hmm. And when I just see you on the screen, I'm starting to get anxious that we're not doing a good job of that. So we need to make different choices. Mm-hmm. And do you see how different that would sound? I mean, think about an employee. Like, you would never just dictate and expect them to be a good employee. You have to work with them and help them understand what you're doing and why you're doing it, and really lay it out.
Yeah. Yeah.
It just means more to everybody.
So again, I want to remind everybody to check out Carrie Contey online. Her website, again, is down in the show notes, so you can click on this. And again, all of the wisdom she's talking about today, she drips out in these free daily emails. And I highly recommend signing up for that. So the link's down below for everybody to access that as well. So Carrie, I want to, God, I could talk to you for hours and hours and hours, but I really want to wrap up and kind of ask you some questions that we like to ask every guest that comes on the podcast. And again, thank you so much for your time. Thank you genuinely so much for what you've done for my family and what you will do for thousands of families carrying on from here forward. So first and foremost, what is maybe one book you're reading these days that is really inspiring you or maybe even challenging you a bit?
Okay, so perfect question. So when I graduated from college, a friend gave me a book called A Gift from the Sea by Anne Morrow Lindbergh. And it was written, I think, in the 40s, honestly, maybe the 50s. And it's about this mother who goes off on her own. She had 5 children, and she went and wrote this book. And it was all about coming back to yourself, coming back to solitude, the importance of having that space away from your people and the daily grind of life, so that you can get that steadiness, get that get the perspective, and really reset your whole system and your heart into okay, this is what's true. Yeah. And I reread it maybe every few years, and I'm rereading it now, and it speaks louder than ever. I mean, even the things she's saying about all the noise coming at us, she had no clue where that was going. But even then, the same messages were relevant. Slow down, connect, enjoy. I mean, she's saying the message right there.
Yeah.
So
beautiful.
I would highly recommend any parent read that because it's so rich and so simple.
That's great. Is there any apps maybe that you're using right now, just personally, that help you simplify?
I use an app called Hi Future Self.
Okay.
And it's basically where you can set reminders to show up hourly, daily, whatever. And I put little intentions. I'll write a little something if I'm working on, slowing down or having more, being more open, or, even wanting to remind myself it's time to appreciate. I'll just have it pop up. And then maybe if I set it for twice a day, I might only see it once a day. But even that seems to kind of kick me back into a more present state.
Yeah, I love that. I appreciate just having little bits, little pings. I'm very selective about my pings these days because I think, you can get overwhelmed by too many notifications, but little pings that can help you reset and get back to center.
Exactly.
So tell us, who's one person maybe in your network of amazing people, I know you know tons of people, that you think we should interview on the Simplifiers podcast, and why? Somebody who can simplify something.
I think Bernadette Knoll, who wrote, we created Slow Family Living together, and I think she could just bring another depth of knowledge to this. And she's also talking about, so she wrote a book called Slow Family Living, and then she's now talking more about slow fashion and really being thoughtful about how you acquire things and then what you do when you're done with them. And really communicating that to your young people, that if you're going to live, a present life and you're going to, and for many of that's a simple life, that not only that in family life, being mindful of the stuff is a really big piece of that. I live this really unusual life because my house blew apart and I had rain pour in and I had 85% of my things taken away because they were ruined. So I'm nomadic and I live as I choose, but having fewer things and recognizing how few things I actually need is this unbelievable liberation that I could have never, I had a sense that it was possible, but the reality of it is far deeper than I could have imagined.
And I remember when this happened, and there was a photo you posted that was just blew my mind. It was like literally you were standing in your house and you're looking up and there is no roof in your house at all. Yeah. And I just thought, holy smokes, that is the universe speaking to you in a big old way. But look at you now. I mean, you literally travel the world and share your knowledge and wisdom with so many parents around the world. So, in addition to her daily emails, you guys, she goes and she does workshops all over the world. So I highly recommend checking that out as well. She might be near you. I mean, that's the beauty of becoming a nomad and becoming a bit of a minimalist in this is that you are, Carrie, have passport, will travel. Yeah.
Totally. Yeah. Bring me in. I'll give talks to schools and groups and retreats and all the fun stuff. Incredible. I just want to get people more present to themselves. Once you slow down and you get connected and you start noticing all the goodies, you start to really flow in a direction that feels magnificent. That's been my experience.
It's transformative.
And I've watched thousands of people do it.
Yeah. So we believe gratitude and simplicity go hand in hand. What's one thing you're grateful for right now in your life?
Ooh, okay. So every night before I go to bed, I'm asking myself, what miracle or dream came true today? What miracle showed up? And then what's something new that I've never appreciated before? So I love that question. And I would say, I do appreciate this all the time, but this ability to share in this way is like my favorite thing to do. I mean, I just absolutely love it. So this time with you, I'm just appreciating so deeply. And then I'm in Maine and the peonies are popping. So probably the peonies, they make my head explode with joy.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
So Carrie, again, thank you so much for you being on the podcast today. I have one final question for you today.
Okay.
So there is a gal listening right now, I'm sure, somewhere in the world, and she's got a new little baby in her hands. And she is inspired by what you're talking about. She's thinking, gosh, this sounds amazing. Is it possibly true that I could be in relationship with this little person and be truly a conscious parent and do all the things that we just talked about? But it's a little bit scary. What's one thing you could whisper into her ear right now just to encourage her?
I would say it's trust your little person and trust yourself and let the adventure unfold and do it in a way where you can tap into you in micro, small, medium, and large ways. In the beginning, they're going to be tiny sips, and then they're going to get a little older and you're going to get a cupful, and then you're going to have, a nice meal. And then it's going to feel like, oh, how did that go so quickly? It's like, you're like kind of halfway through and it was like a blink. And I know when you're in that early, the days are long, but the years are short. When you're in it that deeply, it is hard to imagine. But trust me, like humans unfold so magnificently, and your real work is to just be in awe and slow down enough that you can hear yourself and hear that person and let that unfolding just take its course.
And nourish yourself all the long way.
Big time. And get support. And, reach out to me, reach out to moms groups. Like, don't think we didn't evolve to do this alone. Get your people around you. That's essential.
I have such big love for you. I would hug you from,
the same.
Yes,
Totally.
I'm
hugging
love.
You.
Thank you again for being on the podcast today.
Thank you, Mary. It was beautiful. Perfectly well done. Thank you.